thank you all for being here. I'm very excited to be here for this session. I have two great people here that we're going to do some intros on in a few minutes, but just want to make sure you're here for the Trusted Cloud for the public sector. A lot of great discussions that we intend to have, but I'm very excited to be here, and I'm glad that you're here too. So let's get started. So first, I want to ask the folks some lightning round questions to get to know you better before we do these things. So the first one is, between the DC comic strips and movies and the Marvel Universe ones, which one do you prefer? So Kevin, we'll start with you. Which one do you prefer?
Marvel.
Marvel, okay.
Marvel.
Marvel? Wow, so that was easy because mine's Marvel too, so that was a pretty easy one there, right? Okay, next lightning round question. Moonshots or minimal viable products? Kevin?
Minimal valuable product.
Minimal valuable products, okay. All right, MVP, all right.
I'm going to go with a hybrid between the two.
The hybrid?
Does that work?
Okay, no, that's cool. And I'm an MVP guy, even though I work at Google and I know we're supposed to talk about moonshots, but I try to be pretty fair about trying to get things done so we can move forward. Okay, and then the next question is Beyonce or Taylor Swift?
Beyonce.
Beyonce, oh.
I'll go with Taylor Swift, but back in the day when she was more country.
More country,
Yeah.
okay. So you all know Beyonce's at the Levi Stadium tonight.
Yeah.
And Taylor Swift was at Levi Stadium at the end of July. And why do I know that? Because my 3 kids went to the Taylor Swift concert, so I'm obviously on the Taylor Swift side. And I would tell you, those ticket concerts, at least from my perspective, are really expensive. And then they really get you on the merch. So even though the concert was on a on a Friday, they called me up and said, hey, Dad, you got to bring us to the stadium Thursday so we could stand in line for 3 hours to buy merchandise for the concert that starts the next day. So Taylor Swift has her own economic ability to do these things. So there. All right, and then the last lightning round one is, if you could have any superpower in the future, what would it be and why? Kevin.
I'd have to fly.
Fly, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just had to fly.
Okay, all right.
Teleportation.
Teleportation, and why?
Just being able to like blink and get anywhere with, save on some commute time.
All right, cool. All right, great. I actually don't have a superpower that I would like to have because I'm pretty happy with my life. But those are all really good answers. All right, so let's get going. So I'm here with some great folks. We're going to do a little bit of introductions, but I also want to talk a bit about what we're going to be doing today. So Kevin Haynes is the CEO of Cybrary, and he does a lot of great stuff in the cyber training world. He's been a CEO of other companies, and I'll let you talk about that when we get to you. And then Chad Bratton is from the California Office of Data and Innovation, and he's going to talk about the empowerment that he's doing for the state of California. So this is really great, and I'm thankful for both of you to be here, and we're going to have a great discussion today. So here's our little agenda, what we're going to go through. We'll do our welcoming, and then Kevin will talk, and then Chad will talk, and then we're going to have a panel discussion of some questions that we can hopefully bring some thought leadership to what's going on today. All right, so welcome everybody. And then let me talk a little bit about myself, right? So I did a number of years in the Army, between the Army Reserves and active duty, and my last assignment was at US Cyber Command. And I talk about 2 things that we did there. We gathered information, which is another way for saying, hey, we collect intelligence. And we collect intelligence or gather information on all the threats out there. And then we utilize that. The second thing we do is we utilize that intelligence to help us enable defense. Now, most of my time, because I worked as a Title X Army officer, was taking activities done overseas, but our main mission was to defend our critical infrastructure in the United States. And so today, I'm the first CISO at Google Public Sector, and it's my mission changed a little bit, but I like to talk about how we're doing very similar things, right? Google has a great network, and they have brilliant intelligence that they have to help enable defense. And that's exactly what I think is most important when I did my previous missions in uniform. So I'm really happy to be able to come to Google and do these things. And when I think about the type of intelligence that we have to enable network defense, I'm really excited that we now have integrated Mandiant into our team, because they have some of the other best intelligence that's not only on the Google network, but outside the Google network. And we use that to help defend our network and our data and so forth. The other thing I think is really important is that we look at a lot of things that are with technology, but I think the human capital element is very, very important, right? So we're doing a lot of great things in technology, but one of the reasons I came to Google was I'm surrounded by brilliant, brilliant people. So that human capital element is very, very key to my journey about why we're doing these types of things. So I think about the inflection points that we have today, right, with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and if you've been to the conference, you've seen a lot of the great things that Google's doing with our third-party vendors, and I think, how do we bring that to the public sector to enable us to support our constituents is very, very important. And so, we often talk about human capital, we talk about artificial intelligence, and there's this view that, hey, AI is going to take away jobs. And my view is, AI is not going to take my job, but somebody who understands how to use AI is going to take my job. So it's all incumbent on us to understand where the technology is going and how we can utilize the tools to enable our human capital to be much better at what you're doing. And then the third thing I like to say is, to me, cyber is always a team sport, right? 24/7, doing all kinds of cool things, and you can't do it by yourself. And so my one thing to the folks out there is, when you think about the team you want to work with, if you want to gather really good intelligence, most people don't have nation-state budgets to gather intelligence. So you need a team with the right government agencies like CISA or FBI. And then if you're going to choose a cloud service provider, you want to make sure you have one that has a global footprint that's doing similar things so they can help you enable defense of your data as you go through this digital transformation. So I like to talk about that, and I say cyber is a team sport, and it's important that we understand that we have those team members on board before there's a crisis, so when you hit a crisis, you can rely on them to help you do your things. So at Google, when we talk about how we do cloud security, there's a number of things that are really important to us from our architecture design, right? From the very base level, where we have trusted compute systems, it's important to understand how Google really wants to make sure that the images that you're running, the executables that you're running, are the right ones that you chose to run. And from there, we talk about all the cool things that we can do when we talk about the methodologies of how Google applies security to our platform to do these things. So with that, I'm going to hand it over, and I'll let you do a bit of an introduction about yourself, because you have a lot of great things that you want to talk about.
Cool.
And I'm going to go to
go to that one.
this slide.
So Cybery is a skills development platform for practitioners and then people who want to be practitioners, cybersecurity practitioners. So you may be familiar with other tools that do more security awareness training for sort of everybody in the company. That's not what we do. So we very specifically focus on the practitioners, so the security team and the practitioners there. So we think about it as how do we help people get into the industry, remove the barriers, get them skilled up, help them measure and then improve, and then people that are already in the space, already working in the space, how do we help them progress and continue? So that's more or less what we do, and if you'll go forward, Steve, one, there's kind of three things. The first really is over on that left-hand side, recent and relevant. So we do everything we do is really tied to sort of the work role. Ultimately, my goal and our goal is to get people to the fight to help, and we need more people to the fight to help. And so the only way you can really do that is to make it where it's job applicable, right? So everything we do is sort of tied to a career path or to a work role, like a framework like a NIST or a MITRE, for example, or some examples. And we focus a lot on threat actor tactics, techniques, and procedures in our training, so that hopefully when you come out of and do that, you put something into it, you can actually go put it to work in a job. So ultimately, for us, I mean, we do have, we want it to be fun and engaging, but it's also about really helping people perform in a job. So that's kind of that one. And the middle one is really about, we think of this as a spectrum from getting people into the industry to help. So this is really about onboarding, baselining, trying to get a measurement of where people are. A lot of times people are coming maybe with certifications, but they don't really have the skills. And sometimes they have the skills, but maybe not they need some certs. So it's getting a baseline and helping people onboard properly to whatever that organization feels like is needed for those roles. And then also retention. So we know for a fact, and data proves it out, which is if you invest in your people and you tie their sort of career pathing to sort of training, you tend to get people who retain better. And we know that it costs a lot to go hire expensive cyber people, especially when you're having to poach them from other companies. We think it makes a lot of sense to develop and invest in your own team and grow those resources internally. So that's sort of what that one is about. And then the third one here on the right is kind of boss mode. So there is a mode for sort of the management and admins to be able to assign these things and sort of judge, and help progress to make sure that everybody's sort of moving and developing their skill set in the way that the organization wants. So that's what we do. We're passionate about this. There's a big problem, as you mentioned, at the human capital piece of this, and that's what we want to go make a big dent in.
Great, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that overview of what you're doing, and I know that there's a big opportunity there, and I appreciate your company's going over there, going after that problem set and trying to solve that. So Chad, I'm going to hand it off to you now.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, you can go to the next slide too.
Okay.
Okay, thank you all for having me here today. Just a quick intro on ODI and what we do. Our mission is really to deliver services that are better to Californians through the use of data, human-centered design, and technology. And we really do that by focusing on not making any assumptions, doing the user research, and analyzing the data to make informed technology decisions and not just skipping to a solution. If you go ahead and, no, you can stay on this slide, I'm sorry. The first bullet point there is the Data and Innovation Fund. We have a fund where our department directly funds high impact initiatives across the state of California. We do that by working with departments and doing a discovery sprint and trying to really determine what is the problem that your user is going through or what is the root cause of that problem, right? And through those discovery sprints, we make those informed technology decisions. It gives other state departments a chance to experiment a little bit more because we're directly funding those initiatives. We can kind of act as a punching bag and take more risks that might not be there typically with their standard funding and really allow us to prototype and focus on the user needs and making those informed decisions. The second piece is really around the Cal Secure roadmap. That's the governor's multi-year roadmap to a secure state workforce and bringing in more security professionals into the state workforce, focusing on the people and the infrastructure, really. We're also doing a lot around generative AI, building out use cases for the state and just seeing how it could improve services across the state. And lastly, we are really involved in the California statewide data strategy. I'll get more into that in another slide here in a second. I can't really see what that slide, oh, the next slide, please.
Oh, next slide.
Yeah.
All right, nope, that's the panel discussion. This is the initiatives.
Yeah, this one's done.
Okay.
We're good.
All right.
Nice.
So I'm very interested in California, being a native Californian, and a lot of folks here are from Google, and I think that what you're doing is tremendous. I'm very glad that Governor Newsom is trying to come up with, when you say secure, a safe and secure infrastructure and tooling for our state employees. So when we get to the panel discussion, we can talk a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to go to the panel discussion. That's the bulk of stuff. I got about 30 minutes left. And so we'll talk a bit about the first one. This is for both of our panelists there. So why Google Cloud? So we'll start with you, Chad.
Sure. There's a lot of reasons why Google Cloud. One of them is really to modernize the state workforce. And Google Cloud and Google Workspace have a very high adoption and higher education, right? A lot of people coming out of school, they're using Gmail, they're using Google Workspace, they're very familiar with Google, and there's a trust factor there, right? So part of that is really to help attract talent and modernize the state workforce through the use of modern tools and modern platforms such as Google Cloud and Google Workspace. Another piece is just the ease of use around Google Cloud. For example, allowing your Google Workspace users to sync directly into Google Cloud. You don't have to have another enterprise single sign-on tool. It's directly from Google Workspace into Google Cloud Platform, right? So that was another reason we chose and use Google Cloud as the ease of use. And another reason is really the reliability of some of the services. One in particular is the uptime check services in Google Cloud, where we use it to monitor uptime for all of our websites, and I'm notified within 5-10 seconds of an outage and can begin to look into remediation.
So just a follow on that before I get to Kevin. So when it comes to your workforce, are they able to work remotely? Or do they have to go to the office? And does Google Workspace help them work remotely and be much more efficient? Or is it still a traditional, hey, I got to show up to the office every day to do these types of things?
Our office is mostly remote, and Google Workspace definitely enables that. Drive, we collaborate a lot in Drive, and we're doing other stuff that I'll mention later with Vertex AI and other things in GCP. So yeah, we do work remotely, and it enables us to do that.
Okay, cool. So I think from the workforce perspective, that's great to give them that mobility opportunity.
Yeah.
So Kevin, why Google Cloud?
Yeah, why Google Cloud? So we're always a Google shop. So we're still in the startup phase. I mean, I guess we're 2019. We were a Google shop, but we were using a different cloud provider. So we're a migration story. And so why sort of Google Cloud, why migrate? There were a number of reasons similar to like Chad. So I'd start out with the first one, which was, I would say the relationship in the support of the team. Because without that, we wouldn't have probably gone with the other ones. And so I just saw Google being more proactive with us, honestly, about support, and it was super proactive and easy to engage engineers and architects on what we were trying to do. What we were, the nature of our work means that what we were trying to do is probably a little different than a lot of use cases out there. So having that support and the access was great, and the relationship was great. It didn't hurt that Google became a customer of ours, so that was like, okay, great. So like that said something in terms of how Google thinks about the investment of cybersecurity training for their own team, right? And I'll tell you, not all do that. And then the other piece of this was I'll call it kind of the technical details. So as we kind of crawled in, we didn't know this, but as we got more into it, what we found is that with Google, we had more finite controls down at the kind of the raw level. And so, we've got 4 million people on our platform, and we're a cybersecurity, skills provider. So think about lots of labs with lots of bad, stuff in it, people trying to do crazy stuff. So we really needed to make sure we could control down at the network packet level, not just the subnet level, but at the network packet level. And so how to be able to do that with finite controls and be able to control our use case with that kind of volume, where any particular day you may have 100,000 people come in and launch labs, right? It's a pretty special kind of use case. So the ability for us to be able to have the controls at that level, you can't do that with everybody, so that's why.
So a follow-up on that, sounds like you scale, right, when you have lots of people versus maybe not a lot of people, or is it a very constant thing?
No, I wish it was constant, but no, it's pretty bursty. So you can imagine, like, and it kind of follows the sun too a little bit. Is people waking up and getting online and doing stuff, but it's pretty bursty. And like I said, we've got 4 million people on platform, so if something happens in the world that people need to learn about it, we'll see a huge spike, or if, I don't know, just random Tuesday night and there's nothing to do. I wish I could predict it better.
Okay, good. But the architecture that Google has is able. You haven't had any limitations like that with that first.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. We'll go on to the next panel question there. So I think we'll start with Chad, and the question is, how is security woven throughout your day?
There's many different ways it can be woven throughout my day. Hopefully it's not with a bunch of alerts firing off right in the morning. So that is that is one thing that I do when I wake up is check my inbox, and we do have more sophisticated alerts for more critical outages, right, where I would get notified via my phone, and even if I was sleeping. But I mentioned earlier the uptime check service from GCP. So that is something that we've been expanding recently, and it can be used to monitor really the uptime of any state website. And that's something that we use almost on a weekly basis, maybe not on a daily basis. One key point of it's not just the uptime checks, it's any alerting or monitoring or logging, right, is we don't have enough staff to monitor that 24/7, looking at all the logs. So we're relying on our automations and our tools to alert us when we have an issue. It's just a simple fact that we have to accept. We don't have, we're 8 to 5. We don't have staff working 5 to 8 the next day, just like some private sector companies might have actual, security operations centers running all night. The state does have a security operations center as well, but relying on tools and tools like the uptime checks and other alerts in Google really gives us that instant feedback as opposed to waiting for a call from a security operations center that they've identified an issue. So it's getting that instant feedback, relying on your automations to inform kind of some of the security priorities of that day.
So that also ties back to the human capital part, right? So obviously you don't have a 24/7 under your organization, but utilizing the right tools with all the alerts and sensors going off, you have to triage that, and you can use AI and tooling to help, find the needle in the haystack that something is you actually have to take action on. And then if it's a high priority thing, you might get a call and so forth, right?
Correct, yeah.
So security is pretty well woven into your day. It's not, I assume that no day is the same. You have lots of stats you're looking at and doing the things that every operator does, right?
Yeah, one last point I would make on that is we're also using GCP for isolated backups of other services. So things like our code that we're storing in other places, we're also storing in GCP as an isolated backup repository. And that gives us really the ability to recover from outages in other services as well. So we're always checking on our backups, making sure that they're coming in on time and that they're updated regularly and that everything is kind of as we expect. Yeah.
Okay, great. Kevin, from your perspective, I mean, you're not running a state operation.
Yeah,
you have a 24/7 company you're running. So
yeah, I was thinking about how to answer that. I think that for us, it's kind of like what else is woven into cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is our day. I mean, it's all we do, right? So I think for us, it's thinking about what are. At the end of the day, again, our mission is to get people into the fight and to help the defenders, help organizations out there. Public, private, everybody, and there's a lot of work to do, and it never stops. And like a lot of problems, it's you can't just put out one solve and then all of a sudden you're done and you can just go home, right? Because you've got an adversary on the other end of the keyboard figuring out how to go around what you just did. So, it's never ending. So we're always thinking about, all right, how do we try to help people into this? And it can be a hard field, a challenging industry to get into, and it can be, we turn away too many people just by some of the acronyms and things that we use. So we try to make it just really approachable because we've got to get more people in. And so how do we do that, but yet at the same time, really make it where you build skills and not just base skills, but you have the ability to go in and defend your organization. Okay. And so we're just thinking about how do we do that and do that constantly, given that the adversary is changing all of their tactics.
So just a follow-on question is, so if there's a publicized event that happens, and there's a bunch of after-action reviews of how it happened, how do you integrate that into your curriculum so that folks are, I don't want to say completely up to date, but understand the latest trends going on? Yeah,
well, Kevin Mandia is on our board. Mandia, and I'm really pleased to have him. As you mentioned earlier, the threat intel there is amazing. You guys have a great thing there. But you have to think about, all right, first of all, at what point can you actually put curriculum around an evolving threat, right? Because the first report's always wrong, as you know, right? And so you got to kind of think about where are things going to shape up enough that I can actually then start using this for, on a massive scale. So that's part of the problem. But we have something called common vulnerabilities and exploits content. And so this is one of the things. So we try to get that out 48 to 72 hours. Once something is publicly known. So that means for us to do that and create content, we're working on it before it's publicly known. And that's where partnerships kind of come into play. But yeah, and we don't do it for everything, of course. There's a million of those. Yep. But we try to take the sort of the tier ones, if you think about it that way, and put those out there so that you have the training, but you also have the environment. So this is where like a lab would come into play, where you can go in and see that exploit, and potentially try to mitigate it as well. But we try to do that really timely because, again, at the end of the day, those are the things that practitioners need to protect their organization.
Yeah, great. Great answer there. I appreciate that because I know that the timeliness of reacting to a malicious cyber actor, it's finite for what they do, right? They're going to go in and exploit something, and then the defenders are going to learn how to do it, so they're going to make the actor move on forward to look at new techniques, unless you don't have good cyber hygiene. So there's a lot of folks out there have really bad cyber hygienes, and they're still getting hacked by pretty old techniques. But the goal here is to raise the cyber hygiene so that we're only going after the only ones who are really able to be successful are pretty high-end nation-state actors and so forth. So, all right, let's go on to the next panel question here. Okay, so this one's for you, Chad, and I'm going to read it there. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you learn? How your team was able to support, facilitate, and launch the California data strategy?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll try to summarize it the best I can. There is a 21-page data strategy document. For anyone who's interested, I will email it to you. It's public. In July 2022, the Office of Digital Innovation merged with the Cal Data team, which was under a government operations agency. And we changed our name to the Office of Data and Innovation, so no longer the Office of Digital Innovation. So it's been a little over a year now since we changed our name. And as part of that merger, the Cal Data team brought with them the Office of the Statewide Chief Data Officer, who is the highest data officer in state government. And so that positions ODI as a leader in data strategy, and that we have the Office of the Statewide Chief Data Officer within ODI, and it really allowed us to move forward with developing the state's data strategy. Today, we're implementing a lot of different data services. We have our Data and Innovation Fund, as I mentioned before. There's the Data Science Accelerator that's focused on advanced analytics. The Data Science Accelerator is focused on advanced analytics and statistics. There's the Analytics Accelerator focused on just analytics, and the Modern Data Stack Accelerator is focused on the infrastructure. So that was a lot of words. Really, it's focused on the infrastructure, the processes, and the people to improve and empower the use of data across state government, and really giving state departments and agencies a modern platform to play with that data and rearrange it and query it and allow them to do that much more quickly than they have been able to in the past.
Are there any pilot products or projects you would like to talk about for any of us that live in California, and like how we would, as a citizen, may view our interactions with the state government be improved, or any ones you
Yeah, definitely. So there's some prototype sites that we're working on right now, like a next version of ca.gov, the state's main website, that builds APIs between all of these different state departments, agencies, county, like water districts, for example. There's a version where all you have to do is type in your zip code, and it will tell you what your water quality is in your zip code, right? Type in your where's the nearest food bank, and it will tell you where is the nearest food bank to get resources. Or creating an actual profile where you volunteer certain information, and then the state can say, okay, these services might be better for you, without the user having to know, okay, I need to go to CDSS or DMV or EDD, or it takes away all of those acronyms, one platform, really. And that's through connecting all of the right data sources under one platform and giving people that one platform that they can use to search and get what they need. People are defaulting to google.com a lot for that right now, right? And the state should be able to also provide an internal search platform that really gives people what they need for state resources.
And being in California, I know that there's multiple languages that you have to support to get to the entire citizenry. Is there anything special that you guys are dealing with that?
Yeah, the translations is actively evolving. Our website is translated into 7 or 8 languages. Don't quote me on the exact number, but we'd like to get to more, and hopefully Duet or Google might be able to help us partner with that in the future. So.
Okay,
yeah.
great. No, I appreciate that. I know that reaching out to the citizenry is very, very important. Mm-hmm. California, a very large, diverse state, and I think what you're doing is just tremendous there. So, great. All right. So this next one there is for you, and what I kind of want to ask you is, what are the biggest challenges facing the cybersecurity industry today?
Yeah. Well, for me, at least, the way I answer this is it's a people problem. It's a human problem. For a number of years, I thought cybersecurity was kind of a technology problem. And then I just realized that it's actually a people problem. It's people using technology against other people and organizations. And it just evolves, right? And so I'll tell you a little story. So, but before my current company, I was running a large cyber program, and we had 300 billion events a day, security events a day on average. That was you got to think about what we had to do in terms of technology to do that. And I would walk down into the SOC, one of our global SOCs, pretty often and sit there, watch the team. And what I realized just in those walking around, is that the nastiest, hardest, most complicated stuff was going to the people. It was being served up to the human asset there to make a decision, make a call. And they didn't have a lot of time, and they sometimes didn't have all the information they really needed. And so it sort of dawned on me that I knew what we were doing, I knew what my budget was, I knew what I was spending on technology, I knew what I was doing in terms of sort of our processes, but I was like, man, how am I thinking about the people part of this? How am I investing? How do I get more people like this? And it's kind of a fuzzy answer. It's like, well, you can bring somebody and then you kind of sit them next to Joe or Sue and let them kind of, sit there and percolate for a couple of months, and then maybe they'll pop out on the other side with these skills. And I thought, man, at the rate this is going, that's not gonna work. And that got me really sort of thinking about cyber and how to go do this at scale. So I think the biggest problem is still one of having the right people, enough people with the right skills. And I think about this as a global problem, not just U.S. problem. Enough people with the right skills to be able to play defense and keep up, just keeping up. And it's getting harder to keep up, I think.
Do you think that with the human capital, that artificial intelligence can help be an assistant to enable the human capital to be more efficient or handle more tasks?
Yeah, I think so. I saw it myself, right? We couldn't have handled that many security events and try to separate signal from noise at that scale. So we would have been dead on arrival. So yes, it helps. I think it can help, like I said, separate a little bit the signal from noise and get what you need to get to the right people. But at the end of the day, that's still getting to the right people, and they have to have the right skill. I also worry a little bit about the technology that we build is not going to just be used by us. That technology is going to be used by the adversary, right? And they love sort of hiding in the things that we don't know how they work, right? Or we forget how they work, or so I think about that a lot.
Yeah, and that is something that Google worries about too. Is that and that's why we try to have responsible artificial intelligence. And for those of you know that we've developed a model specifically for security to help us detect malicious activity. The model's still learning on a lot of the great stuff that we have out there with virus total and all these other things. But I think we need to really pivot and say, hey, how do we harness human capital and our advantage with AI, ML to help defend our networks better and go after malicious cyber actors? I want to follow on this question with you still and do a little bit pivot about retention.
Yeah.
Right. So we talked about, hey, we don't have enough human capital. Training is really, really important. And then you alluded to the fact that if I'm investing in my human capital, then they'll generally stick around.
Yeah.
But are there any other tangible things? Because we know that the workforce that does this is small. They get burned out because there's so much going on. They often can get recruited away.
Yeah.
Is there things that you think like government agencies can do to help retain this talent? Because I hate to say it, I'm now working at Google. We often can pay better salaries, if you will.
Sure.
Is there some kind of view that you have from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that quite a bit. I could hire anybody we wanted, right? And we couldn't hire the ones that had sort of a passion or mission burned into them, right? And so that would be one thing, which is, like for Chad, you got a great mission there, and I think just beating the drum on that and how it helps, everybody is you're going to find people that's just, they wake up every day and that's what they want to do and go help that mission. So that'd be one. I think the second is a lot of people who get into cybersecurity, they do it not necessarily for sort of a job. I mean, they would do this on the weekends. They probably do, right? They do it on the weekends and at night because they're sort of passionate about this. So give them outlets, right? Back to kind of invest in them, but also give them sort of paths. And so they love to do different. So give people maybe an opportunity to go do maybe some offensive stuff, right? If you're doing packet analysis, 12 hours a day, eventually you're going to get a fork and poke your eye out because you're going to be just you're done with that. So give people some opportunity to do different things, and I think that's a little bit harder to do sometimes in other like a Google example, because you might want to have. I'm going to hire somebody that has, really good at that skill. So like a Chad might be able to say, well, I'm going to grow you in that area, right? And they may not be able to get that elsewhere and make good retention.
Oh, great, yeah, mission. So Chad, same question, like retention, right? So you're at the California state government. You're surrounded by tech sector opportunities. How do you retain the talent that you've invested in and hired and so forth? What kind of things are you looking at doing?
Yeah, that can be really challenging in this state, especially competing with private sector hiring, and just the state hiring process in general is a little bit more complex with exams and different things that you have to go through. So for us, part of what I mentioned earlier on retention is just using the tools and platforms that people want to use. Lots of times developers and software engineers and researchers will get a firm no from the ISO shop or from the CIO shop on new technology in the state. But we're trying to kind of change that mentality, and that's why we're adopting these more modern platforms, is really to focus on retention. And then training opportunities is huge. Platforms like Cybrary would be huge for the state to adopt too. The state does have a pretty good training program, but I've seen it go underutilized at times, and I think that's something that we can work on improving, is really making sure that we make training available for our security workforce in the state, and showing that we invest in their skills and care about growing their skills. Those are the main ones really, is just showing our staff that we care about them, and we can make modern platforms available for them to use.
No, I think that's great. I think that part of human capital is also having the policies and procedures and the intent to invest in them. Mm-hmm. And I completely resonate when somebody wants to bring in a new technology and the CISO says no. There's often a reason, and at least if they're transparent about why they have to say no, that discussion can go a lot farther. Yeah. I think transparency is very important to a workforce, and I really like the concept of, hey, mission focused is where we're going to be able to retain people.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. This next one is also for you, Kevin.
We talked about some of this.
The skill gaps, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Depending on what research paper you read, there's different numbers, but they're all big in terms of what the gap looks like. And I think when you step back and look at that, just across not just the U.S., I think we've been at this a little longer, so we probably don't have, we still have a problem, but not, it's more pervasive outside the US, I think. Number one is you have to get people who are different into this field. We got to go to places that are not your typical sort of place. I think we need more diversity of every kind. into the field. We need to be more open to that and more like looking for that and bringing that in. Some of the, I could go on a soapbox about this, but I know we don't have time. But some of the things that we do and say, and the way we label things, and the way that we sort of have acronyms about certain things, it sort of turns people off, right? A lot of it's actually from the military too. Some of the terms, kill chain and adversary and stuff I've been saying here today. But like if you're not used to that, it's like, well, maybe this isn't for me, right? Maybe I have to go be in the military for it. That's not true, right? And there's all these kind of things that we do. So I think we got to make it more inclusive. Bring more in. And I'll tell you, some of the best analysts I've ever had were firemen. They were police officers. They came from places that you wouldn't expect. So I think we got to get much better at that generally, and then I do think that we need to turn the page and just kind of ask a question about, I'd love for CISOs to start thinking about this, okay, because you usually say, okay, well, what am I doing to protect my organization? And you're gonna get a bunch of technology answers. I'd love to say, hey, what are we doing to sort of invest and prepare our people? That'd be an awesome question to ask.
Yeah, I just want to dovetail a little bit on that. So I'm probably as guilty as anyone else when we try to bring cyber into a military formation. We're all indoctrinated to talk about warfighters, and so we have to use terms that the warfighter will understand.
Yep.
And I 100% acknowledge that sometimes the terminology is not the best analogy, but that's unfortunately how the way the military operates. And then as the military has created a warfighting domain called cyber, a lot of that doctrine from the land, sea, air, and traditional warfighting domains got migrated to the cyber domain. Yeah. But I remember as we were going through those definitions, as a technology person, I'm like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Why are we saying these types of things? Right. But from the military perspective, it made sense to the non-cyber people. Yeah. And hearing you say that, I'm like, yeah, we might have proliferated a little bit too far because there are a lot of military folks that we use a lot of acronyms there. But that was a good valid point. Appreciate that. All right, this next one is for you, Chad, on the sense there. What's our biggest challenges that you face in hiring your cybersecurity professionals? We talked a little bit about that, but anything you want to reiterate on that?
Yeah, just quickly, since we did already talk on this briefly, really it's having enough skilled workers, investing in the people. There's a roughly 25% gap in state cybersecurity workforce right now for state positions, and that's a lot of work. That's 25% of the work that goes without being looked at, right? Or someone is overworked and having to look at too much work. So just creating those pipelines, I think we need to get into more school systems and talk about state employment. That's personally how I got a job with the state. One department came to Sac State when I was a student at Sac State, and I got interested in it, and I applied for them, and I got a job there. So I don't see that happening often, and really just trying to address the workforce shortage and the skills gap, I think, is part of it, and reducing the complexity around the state hiring process will help too, which is something we're working on. Yeah.
Is that where automation can help? Taking all those things you have to fill out and maybe streamlining it a bit?
Yeah, we don't have like the one click to apply from LinkedIn, right? That private sector uses a lot. It's like take this exam and apply on this date and show up on this date. It's a lot more complex. So trying to make that simpler.
All right, I think we got one more question there, and I'm going to ask you guys to answer it very quickly. Okay. How can organizations build a culture of security awareness? Near and dear to my heart as a CISO, how do we build security awareness in our culture?
I'd like to augment the question a little bit. I would say we ought to be thinking about security literacy. I think awareness is good. I think we're sort of beyond. I think we're kind of beyond that. I think we ought to be looking for a notch above that, which is security literacy. I think really everybody ought to know a little bit more about cybersecurity, not just a select group of people in the company. So yeah, that's how I think about it.
Okay, Chad?
For me, one of the most important parts for that is making sure that you have executive buy-in and support, and that executives lead by example. You can't have the exceptions where you have a shorter training program for the executive team or something like that. So having that executive buy-in and leading by example, typically the staff will also see that and and really see that the executives care about security and will follow in those footsteps. And then just backing up your program with policy and procedure and training your staff. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. That is the last question that we have. I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to know what Google Public Sector does, and there's a little link for you if you have any other questions about what Google Public Sector does. But again, thank you for attending, and this will close out the session today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.